Chairman Murkowski, Vice Chairman Schatz, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony. I am Sarah Harris, Vice Chairwoman of the Mohegan Tribe. I'm here today in my capacity as the Secretary of United South and Eastern Tribes Sovereignty Protection Fund. This hearing is timely as Indian country is facing the impacts of what is on track to be the longest government shutdown in history. And while we have experienced lengthy shutdowns in the past, including the 2018 through 2019 shutdown, we must also contend with the upheaval that the current administration's policies are bringing to the functioning and composition of the federal government, many of which appear to be implemented without regard to programs, services, funding, and contracts that tribal nations and our people are owed. These changes, including reductions in force, are exacerbating the negative impacts of this shutdown for Indian nations, citizens, and communities. It is critically important to underscore that allowing shutdowns caused by partisan disagreement to impact the delivery of trust and treaty obligations is unacceptable. Although we celebrate the certainty that advance appropriations have brought to IHS at this time, tribal nations access funding and services throughout the federal government, the vast majority of which remains unprotected. Our tribal nations are working to ensure that citizens have continued access to food as nutrition programs like SNAP and WIC are running out of funds. For example, USET's SPF's board president, Penobscot Chief Kirk Francis, was unable to testify today because he is currently working with his tribal council to reallocate over $200,000 in other funding to bridge the gap in nutrition and funding for November alone. This includes asking tribal hunters to donate moose meat so that elders can be fed. As the temperature continues to drop this fall, at least 12 of our member nations are without low-income heating assistance through the Department of Health and Human Services. The CDC is extremely delayed in sharing disease prevalence data with our Tribal Epidemiology Center as South Carolina faces a measles outbreak and we enter flu season. Finally, some tribal nations are being forced to consider taking out lines of credit to continue providing services to their citizens and communities. Congress and the administration must work together to ensure the shutdown is lifted as soon as possible. The longer the shutdown continues, the greater the likelihood of compounding impacts to essential services in Indian country, those that are the responsibility of the federal government. We urge the administration to work with Indian country to ensure its policies, including RIFs, do not affect the delivery of trust and treaty obligations. Beginning on January 20th, as we do with every administration, tribal nations have approached the White House, the Office of Management and Budget, and numerous federal agencies and departments seeking partnership and to educate them on the unique legal and moral obligations the United States holds to Indian nations, tribal nations, citizens, and communities. We've explained why these obligations supersede the administration's priorities related to the scope and size of the federal government. This includes requests for exemptions from the administration's RIFs for tribal serving positions, both through the Department of Government Efficiency and now through OMB. Despite this advocacy, many tribal serving positions have been eliminated over the course of this year. Tribal organizations have also come together in response to the early actions of the administration, including USET, SPF, and our sister organizations here today. Currently, a total of 37 member organizations, the Coalition of Tribal Sovereignty, is a nonpartisan collaboration of local, regional, and national tribal organizations working together to safeguard tribal sovereignty and uphold the United States delivery of trust and treaty obligations. Since February, the coalition has sent over 50 letters to the executive branch. Broadly, these communications offer the following messages. Indian country is being unintentionally swept into the administration's broad implementations of its policy priorities. Because of trust and treaty obligations, tribal programs are not like other federal programs and must be treated differently. Tribal nations in the Trump administration have important overlapping goals, and we must focus our energies on pursuing those goals together. At present, however, our focus is being drawn to protecting Indian country from collateral harm caused by imprecise implementation of the Trump administration's priorities. It is critical that all branches of the federal government recognize that IHS, BIA, and BIE are not the sole agencies charged with delivering trust and treaty obligations. Tribal nations access funding and services throughout the federal government for which we have prepaid with our lands, resources, and the lives of our ancestors. It's simply not enough to only protect these agencies from the impacts of policy changes and position eliminations. All tribal slavery personnel, programs, and agencies must be exempt from these actions. Turning our attention back to this committee and Congress more broadly, the shutdown and this year's federal upheaval should inspire you to think differently about how trust and treaty obligations are funded and carried out. In the short term, all federal Indian funding must be protected from shutdowns and continuing resolutions through advance appropriations. This would ensure that the federal government continues to meet its obligations regardless of politics and provide some certainty to our people, patients, and employees each year. In the long term, full and mandatory funding would better exemplify the obligations of the United States to tribal nations. In closing, we urge this Congress to bring the destabilizing effects of its own inaction to an end for Indian country. We thank the committee for the opportunity to testify and look forward to partnering as you seek to advance and improve the delivery of trust and treaty obligations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vice Chairman. Next, we turn to Mr. Mallott. Welcome.